Well, I'm excited to welcome the Counseling Center from Dallas Theological Seminary here for this roundtable. Plus, we also have Dr. Thacker from our Biblical Counseling Academic Department. I know that a lot of our students and maybe even some of our staff don't know we have a counseling center, and maybe they don't recognize some of these faces. So, Dr. Cheatham, I'm going to start with you and just real briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll just go around the circle, and then we'll start diving into some of the questions.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Hillman. My name is Dr. Kelly Cheatham. I'm the Director of Counseling Services here at DTS. I'm also adjunct faculty member in the counseling department. I've been here in this role for about a little over 5 years now. We have a great staff.
Great. Dr. Woodson.
I'm Dr. Woodson. I'm also part of the counseling team as well, part of the student life team, as one of the assistant deans here, also a pastor, local pastor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Glad to be here today.
Great. Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Scher. I'm part of the counseling team as well. I started my practicum in the year 2018, and I worked through until now. Glad to be here.
Great. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline Drinkwater. I've been on staff in the Counseling Center for about a year, almost a year and a half now. And I know some people and a lot of people I don't know.
Yeah, great. Travis.
Hey, I'm Travis Long, and I'm a student still at DTS. I'm graduating this spring, and I'll be staying on at the Counseling Center as well.
And then finally, Dr. Thacker.
Hi, I'm Andy Thacker, and I'm a faculty member in the Biblical Counseling Department. I've been here since 2014 full-time and was an adjunct before that.
Great, great. Well, we've had a lot of questions submitted to us, and so I just want to dive in, and we'll get started with those. And so, Dr. Cheatham, I'm going to have you with the first question. I don't think people are aware of this. What counseling options are available to folks during this time?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's a good question to start off with. We are up and running counseling services. We are fully adapted to what we call telehealth, telemedicine, people call it that, to providing counseling services via technology across the internet. And we are all set up and running. It's running really well, working well. So we can do that with students. We can also just talk to students over the phone if we need to. We have, a staff of 5 of us that are available Monday through Friday, all day long, really, different times. But we definitely have availability to be there for students. So that is certainly one way for students to get the assistance they may need regarding counseling. But we can also help students with a referral if they'd rather meet with or need to meet with someone off campus. We can help with that process too. So that's really a specific thing from one person to the next based on what their needs are. But we can certainly assist with the process too, a referral. But again, we have everything in place and ready to roll. So don't be discouraged or concerned about how we can make this happen. We've been doing it long enough now. We were doing it a little bit even before things changed here recently. So we are all ready to roll, and we are just waiting and hoping to hear from anybody that needs any help in that regard.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Cheatham. So, Dr. Woodson, I hear this from a lot of people, this idea of fear. How do I stop feeling fearful? And one person wrote to me, said, I'm praying, I'm reading the Bible, I'm doing devotions, but just nothing is helping.
I like Niebuhr's prayer that it says that the things we can accept and the things we cannot accept. And let's read just a couple lines from that prayer. It's called the Serenity Prayer, but God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. And he goes on and on with that, but accepting what you can not change and changing what you can change, knowing your limitations, knowing your power, placing your trust not in the changing circumstances, but placing your trust in God. He's the foundation of it all. And we trust him through all these changing, difficult situations that we're going through. Accepting change. And we have to change. We have to be flexible during these times.
Crystal, this idea of anxiety, of not knowing what's next. I'm thinking Travis is getting ready to graduate, and we have a lot of students that are getting ready to graduate. A lot of people are dealing with anxiety of just not knowing what's next. Well, how would you answer that?
Well, not knowing what's next can be really, anxiety provoking, because we all want to have some sort of control of our lives. And so first, I just want to say it's pretty normal. Probably everybody at some point is going to face anxiety. Our society and our culture does not really deal well with so-called negative emotions such as anxiety. We sometimes kind of push it aside because we think it's not really profitable for us or it's not productive. However, I would like to kind of challenge those of you guys who are facing the unknown, what is going to happen next, kind of embrace it, because it is one of what I call those protective emotions, and it's getting yourself ready for something is going to happen in the future. So first, I would say, hey, embrace your anxiety and talk it through with other people, and find your own ways to cope with it. Some people find it's very helpful to just, pray it through and having that quiet time. Some people find it really helpful to talk through with other people. But I would say this, when you face something you really don't know, maybe try to identify what is a part like you can control right now, what you know, and get yourself ready and, just better prepare for your future, the foresee future you can't see right now.
Thanks. Dr. Thacker,
Yes.
we hear this from a lot of our students who are also parents or are married. Tension is starting to rise in our home. How can my family handle heightened conflict that's happening during this time?
Yeah, I think part of it is to normalize it. Brene Brown is an author that just came out with a podcast, and she talks about this concept of the terrible first time. And anytime we do something for the first time, it's always more difficult, and it's messy, and it doesn't run smoothly. And I think it's really important that we all acknowledge that we are doing global pandemic for the first time, and it's terrible because it's the first time and it's difficult no matter what. So first of all, acknowledging that tensions are going to run high. This is going to be hard, and some days are going to be better than others. But it would not be abnormal for families, couples, parents, kids to really struggle with not being frustrated with one another and not having conflict. I think a great place to start too is to take care of yourself. It's the oxygen mask principle. If you're not okay, you can't help anybody else be okay. And so this is a huge ask, I know, for parents and for anybody and during this time, but to try to carve out some time to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like. And it's going to require communication. If you're in a home with other people, to say, hey, I need 30 minutes. Can you hang with the kids for 30 minutes? Or to talk about scheduling and to take care of yourself. And then it allows you to be more of a thermostat in the environment rather than a thermometer that's responding to the climate. I also think too that this is a great time to choose our battles wisely. This is probably not a good time to create any major new initiatives in your house. Like, this wouldn't be a great time to potty train. If you're thinking about potty training, even though you have a lot of time on your hands, this is not a good time to do that. This is not a good time to do anything that's big and more anxiety provoking. You're just wanting to get through this as relatively stable as you can.
Caroline, we were talking about this before we came on, about that we're doing a lot of trying to connect virtually. And so how can I connect well with people virtually?
I think a big piece of it is trying to recreate what we had before in some ways. So if you had people in your life, whether it's like a community group or a group of friends or family, that you had some kind of regular hang time or communication with, try to keep that going. Make it scheduled, make it weekly or regular in some way. if you can use Zoom or FaceTime or Skype, that's awesome. To be able to have a face-to-face is, I think, a lot. It activates a different part of your brain than just talking on the phone, and it's really helpful to be, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have a bunch of people in your household that you're quarantined with. To see people face-to-face is really a benefit. And I think also with connecting, just in terms of connecting with the outside world in general, whether you have people in your household or not, social media and like news is a big piece of that. And I think it can be done well and it can be done less well. And so whether we realize it or not, we're constantly curating the digital world that we get to observe. So with all this time on our hands, we can kind of be more intentional about what we follow on social media, what news we follow. If news is something that is creating more anxiety for you, limit that. And you don't need to feel guilty about being less informed. Like, just do what you need to do for right now. And social media, I think comparison it's something we talk about even before this, in terms of like looking at someone else's life and comparing your own life. And I think in a situation like this where everyone is living the same bad dream, it kind of gets flipped, and we compare and see like all the awful things happening in people's lives. And just to be smart and kind of steward your social media, social connection, and everything that you're connected to digitally.
Yeah, great. Travis, I've heard this from a lot of people. I find myself sitting at home and I'm kind of sinking into a hole. How do I get out of this?
Yeah, as we experience this new change and kind of like what our lifestyle looks like, you get kind of trapped in the same thought process over and over again. And we know that when we do that, it only goes deeper and darker. And so taking some time to find an activity that you used to enjoy and trying to do something new and kind of grow yourself in that time can be a way to put those thoughts on pause. Really setting aside time to say, all right, I'm going to feel these feelings for this amount of time today and kind of process it, and then say, all right, that's enough of that. I need to go on and do something else. Just because we know that there's only a limited amount of time like your body can sit with those emotions, and the longer you sit in it, the more uncomfortable it gets, and it just begets itself all over again. Mm-hmm. So when you find yourself exhausted, recognizing that I'm feeling this going a certain way, that's the best time to take that warning sign and do a new activity, whether that's exercising, going out on a walk, finding something else that's enjoyable that you like, or even talking to someone. When you're isolated, it's so easy to find yourself even like laying in bed at night, going through the motions over and over again. But the way to change something is that you have to change it. So finding something that you can put in place when you need it there.
Thanks. Crystal, kind of a question in a similar vein, but a little bit different twist. Person says, I'm feeling overwhelmed and that like life is out of my control in my home life. What can I do?
I feel like for every human being, like we all need some sort of control to feel that we can handle it. And if you really feel like life is out of control, of course, you feel overwhelmed. And as we mentioned earlier, this is really a new thing for us. Like your whole household is kind of stuck in the house, and you have to spend this like extended period of time in interacting with one another in the way you probably have never like experienced before. It is overwhelming. At the same time, whenever we face something kind of new, we want to find the anchor of, hey, I admit that there is so many things is out of control. However, what can I control, even when things are going out of control? For example, you probably cannot control like how your spouse, react to you, or how your kids' behavior inside of the house. But you can control like your emotions, how you respond to them, and how you stabilize your emotions instead of like provoking even like bigger and more intense conflicts inside of the house. I'd say this is a hard situation. It's probably, if you feel this way, I just want to say, hey, you're not alone. A lot of people are feeling the same feeling right now. And it is challenging for each one of us to just find out like new and creative ways to handle it.
Yeah. I know Crystal's going to have to leave in just a second because she actually has a client that she's going to be seeing. But I've got one more question for Crystal before she does need to take off. So I'm jumping ahead in our script just a little bit. Somebody had written and said, I have a grandma who's at a nursing home and she's sick and I can't go there to see her. And I feel so guilty. So what should I do about that?
Gosh, this is just really difficult for us because, you know, we have loved ones and we have our family members and we want to be there for them when they're going through a hard time. We want to show our support and we want to show our love. And I would argue without this coronavirus thing, without this ban, you probably would go ahead and go to the nurse home and visit her. So in other words, it's not your choice that you don't want to go visit her. It's just a limitation that is put on you right now. And so we've been talking about, you know, things you can control and things you cannot control. And those are the things probably is out of your control. If you can draw a circle, you know, and kind of list all the things is within your control, it's probably not going to be in that circle because you're not going to be the one who's control how this whole thing is going to develop. And I would encourage you to really find out like creative ways to show your support and show your love, even without physically being there, and just brainstorming some ideas with your support groups and family members, even like sending cards and letters and just showing support. And we talked about this, you know, this whole connection like virtually right now. Like Zoom meeting is another way, phone calls, and just trying to find ways to let her know that, hey, I love you. I want to be there, support you, but I can't do it, but I will find my way to do it right now.
Good. Thank you. Thanks. So Dr. Cheatham, a lot of people, and this has been mentioned already a couple of times, they're wondering, you know, is it just me or are other people feeling the same way that I am as I'm dealing with so many emotions right now, dealing with this?
Right. Yeah. And we've a few of us have already mentioned today the need to recognize that the feelings we have, for the most part, are very normal and they're new. A lot of stress and anxiety and just this, I mean, anxiety basically means fear of the unknown. So there's a lot of unknown here, and it's okay to have some of that, to feel fearful. Mm-hmm. But so most likely your feelings are not that different than other people around you. It's easy to think maybe that you're handling it not as well, or it's harder for you. But I would encourage you to really consider the fact that more than likely, other people are also experiencing things, and may not be in ways that you see. It may be that because of the way they're acting or what they're saying, it's not difficult for them. But if we really focus on that, if we kind of have that as a belief that this is more difficult for me, it's harder for me than it is for other people, or then we're really going to feel even that much more isolated and feel like there's something different about us. And that could really lead to having difficulty being hopeful for things to change. But so I would not obsess about that and focus on that. I would really look at it from a positive perspective and recognize that because the truth is, this is difficult for everyone. Mm-hmm. But we have our own unique ways of responding to it. So try to focus on look kind of bigger picture, that this is literally something affecting the world, and we're all going to respond to it differently in some way or another. And most likely, other people are feeling so much of what I'm feeling and not the other way around. But it's also normal to think that, to feel that way. Oh, this is harder for me than it is for other people. And that could lead to a train of thought, again, that actually makes us feel even more, again, isolated and scared and anxious. But if you can stand in the belief that this is hard for everyone, but we're going to get through this. And it's not just me. We're all going through it together. There's something about recognizing the fact that we're going through this together that has some healing benefit in and of itself. So focus on truth rather than getting confused or, disrupted by thoughts that are not true. So the fact is that this is difficult for everybody, and keep that in your mind that that's the truth.
Yeah. Dr. Woodson, I find myself turning to unhealthy and or destructive habits, such as endless social media scrolling, overeating, porn, etc., during this time of isolation and stress. How can I turn to healthy habits instead, and how can I connect with others?
Habits oftentimes are a way that we deal with our stress. It's a way that we handle the difficult moments. We find a default in our lives. And oftentimes those default places are unhealthy places. Pornography, overeating, and it's just our way of trying to deal with the stress. One way to deal with that is to find some good accountable relationships, doing it through Zoom, doing it through the telephone. But if you know you have an area of weakness, let's say it's pornography, and that's your way of coping with the stressful situation you're in, form a healthy relationship with someone and commit yourself to talking with them, to letting them see your computer habits, just being open and transparent with them and allowing them to walk through your life and to ask you those difficult questions. David needed Jonathan, and we all need Jonathans in our lives. So finding someone you trust, someone you can be open with. That program Computerized is out there that can help with those pornography issues. Just finding someone to share your life with and to commit yourself to doing that, to praying with them, to reading scripture with them, to being open with them about the stress you're going through and how you're coping and dealing with those stresses.
Good. Dr. Thacker, I'm having to homeschool my 3 kids, and we live in a tiny apartment. Plus, I'm trying to keep up with schoolwork and serve at my church, and I'm really feeling stretched. How do I keep a balance?
Well, I laughed literally out loud when I read this because I was like, wait, did I send in a question and I didn't realize it? So I very much identify with this. So I think, again, we have to give ourselves an infinite amount of grace that not everything is going to get done. And if it does get done, it's not going to be Pinterest perfect or our best work. It's just gonna have to be good enough. Good enough is good enough. I also think too that we have to choose wisely what we do put our time towards, because we legitimately may not have enough time to get everything done. When you're homeschooling 3 kids, when you're trying to do class assignments, when you're trying to work, when you're trying to shepherd other people's hearts, there's not enough hours in the day for that. And I mistakenly thought this was going to be a season where I was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to get a lot more margin. I had no clue what I was thinking. Like, margin is not even in the picture. And so there are days that I'm like, yeah, we're not doing your Bible lesson today for school. You can watch Sunday school at church, or you can watch Right Now Media. I don't have time for that. Or we're not going to cover history for the kids. You're going to cover math and science or whatever. DTS is giving you more margin in the sense that you can choose to do classes pass fail. And that's a great option. We just want to get this done and put this semester to bed as best we can. And so I think allowing yourself the opportunity to get things done, but not have to do it perfectly and not have to do it all. I also will say, as a pastor or a shepherd at your church community, there are seasons in life where you're doing okay and the people you're ministering to are going through a tragedy. We are all in a collective season where we're all going through this trauma together. And that's going to impact the margin and the ability we have to shepherd other people's hearts. And so be extra kind to yourself and don't be afraid to say no. Like, I can't do that next Zoom call, or I can't do that because I've got to breathe today. So just remember that it's not that you have a lot of stuff that's going on, but you're not in a tragedy and you're caring for people that are in tragedy. We are collectively experiencing this together.
Yeah. So Caroline, the day we're filming this, we've been 2 weeks in, and now we're being told a minimum another 4 weeks. So it just keeps going on longer and longer. What are some ideas for socialization during this time?
I love seeing how creative people have gotten in this time. I know there's a lot of, sad things to see in the news or to hear from people, but there's a lot of really cool stuff out there too. So I think seeking out those like good news and good kind of new creative things that have come out of this and getting ideas from other people or from your own creativity. I mean, if you don't think you're creative, remember that you were made in the image of God and He's creative. So you have creativity in you somewhere. Maybe you're not like, you wouldn't call yourself an artist, but something is in there. Get in touch with it. See what you can figure out. If it's less social and more just kind of getting you out of yourself, but see what you can do with what you've got. And in terms of getting creative, just outside of your own head, in your home, or in ways to connect with other people. There's a really fun idea that I have. It's on my to-do list, is to have a socially distanced picnic and to like go in different cars with different friends and take all our own stuff, don't share anything, layer a blanket 6 feet apart, and just have a picnic together. I thought that was a really cool idea. So, like I said, get creative. There's so many cool opportunities that we wouldn't normally think of given the limitations that we have right now. Mm-hmm. And I've even had days and moments when I've gotten like legit excited about some cool new ideas that I would never have come up with under normal circumstances. So try to reframe what's going on and see the positive, the silver linings that you can, and take advantage of some of the fun, creative things that other people are thinking up, and maybe something for yourself too.
That's cool. Travis, I see people. I do Zoom calls, and I see people through work or school or even at church, but I'm still feeling lonely. How do I cope with this overwhelming sense of feeling lonely?
Yeah, with the drastic changes that are happening in everyone's life, the social life aspect probably took one of the biggest hits for everyone. I think there was a time when we were all at our jobs, and then all of a sudden we weren't there, and so now we're not relating to coworkers as well. We only have these specific meetings, but the thing is that it's going to be different than relational intimacy that happens in person. When you're directly across someone, when you can share a laugh and you can share a hug and have that kind of connection, that we're going to have to adjust to this new pattern. It's okay to take time to adjust to it. And so, people used to harp on technology, that people spent too much time on it. And now this is what we have. And recognizing that this is a chance to use technology to, benefit the kingdom and to connect with people, and that it is a gift, that each interaction, each Zoom call meeting that we have is a chance to connect, because that's the only means of connection that we have right now. If you are fortunate enough to have your family at home, this is a great way to start working on your family relationships, to really bond with the ones that are closest to you. And if you have roommates, this is a great way to dive deeper with them as well. If you are alone, you really need to focus on using technology in a creative way, like Caroline said. I've seen stuff from people playing games on the internet, playing whatever, watching Netflix with friends and being able to chat with each other through it. But there's a book by Dietrich Bonhoeffer called Life Together, and it really is, it has been what's helped me get through this, is that each chance that we have for a connection is a gift from God. Every single opportunity that we have to connect with one another, whether it's digitally, through a text or a phone call, that's only possible because God allows it. And so we need to start practicing gratitude for what we do have. And if this would have happened 100 years ago, we wouldn't see anyone. We would be stuck in our isolated spaces. So we're a step ahead where other people have been in time of pandemic. So really looking for those silver lining moments is going to be your best bet right now.
Dr. Cheatham, several people that are going to be watching this are graduating. Again, Travis is one of those guys who's graduating, and graduation has been postponed. How do I deal with the disappointment that my graduation has been postponed?
Yeah, that's it's really, I feel that. I really feel sad for the people that are in that position. Graduation is something that that students look forward to from the day one they start at DTS or any seminary or any school for that matter. So my heart goes out to students in this situation, and so I empathize with that. I think one of the best ways to handle so much of what we're talking about is to recognize that there's grief involved in this. There's things that are being lost that we thought we were going to have that we don't have now, and so we need to accept this as a period of grief, meaning that grief means to really process through a process of going through loss. And sometimes the losses are things that we didn't have, we thought we would have, not something we actually had and lost, something that we thought we would have someday that now we don't. We can't actually count on that. And graduation is one of those. So when it comes to grief, that means we're going from denial to acceptance. And in between there is a lot of emotion like anger and sadness. So as we've been saying today, accepting those emotions, accepting the reality of loss, having someone to talk to about that, not isolating yourself in it, recognizing that it's normal to feel that, and let other people join with you and empathize with the feelings you have. And you're able to do that with others too. Kind of what Travis was just mentioning. And we need to be looking for opportunities to not only for other people to help us, but to help others. There's something about us being along with someone else who's going through something similar that can really be beneficial mutually. So I'm just recognizing this. This is a grief time, and grief is part of life. We are able. God has granted us the ability to process through and work through grief, but we can't deny it. We stay stuck in that first part of grief, which is denial of the feelings and the reality. We want to get up to this point of acceptance, accepting the reality of the loss and processing those feelings that come with it. My son is graduating from college this semester, and my wife and I talked often about that for him and how and I think about high school seniors missing prom and all the things that, that they expected to happen, and that it's just not happening right now. So again, it's a big issue affecting a lot of people, but the disappointment is normal to have. But this too will pass, and we're going to be able to get through it together. But just think of it as a grieving time and allow yourself, like Dr. Thacker said earlier, the grace to process through things like this in a way that's helpful for you. Give yourself that license to do that.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Woodson, one of the things that I think has caught a lot of people off guard, this is how it's phrased, is why are all these unresolved issues from my past rearing up their heads during this time?
Yes, this time will bring up old issues that you have not dealt with, issues that are there, but you have ignored. I would encourage you not to ignore them, not to put your head in the sand, but to really face what are some of those former issues, some of those past issues. Some relationships may have gone awry, and you've never dealt with those relationships. And I really want to encourage us to forgive, to let go of some of that pain, some of that hurt. God has forgiven us. And with that same grace, we need to forgive those who have hurt us in the past, to move on from those places and to move to a better relationship. So these difficult times causes us to remember how we have been hurt and how we've been harboring that hurt for such a long time. Some of us were hurt in our childhood. Some of us were hurt in our teenage years. And that pain is just as bright and viable today as it was back then. Mm-hmm. And we need to deal with those issues, forgive the person, and to move on from a lot of that pain that keeps us stuck. We've talked about being stuck. Unresolved pain keeps us stuck. And in order for us to grow, to mature, to be healthy emotionally, we need to let that past go and to move on.
Dr. Thacker, I have a grown child, and they live far away, and they're worried about me getting sick. This person talked about diabetes, but it could be any type of thing. And then my child feels so helpless that I still have to go see doctors, and I've still got to go do the groceries. I've still got to do other things. How do I comfort my grown child who lives far away?
Well, I think part of it is to assure your grown child that you're taking all necessary precautions, that when you do need to go grocery shop or you go to the doctor, that you're maintaining a safe distance from people and you're not choosing to behave recklessly with the activities that you do have to do. I think also giving your child space to feel that sense of helplessness and maybe some sense of guilt that they're not here to help you. But I also sense that that's probably part of your child's growth area that they probably need to lean into. And so I think it would be maybe unhelpful for the parent to own the feelings that the kid is having, that they can't be there, they feel helpless, they feel guilty, whatever it is. But encourage your child to share their concerns, to share their fears, to process, to talk about them, but also recognize that that's part of a growth area that the Lord perhaps wants to grow in your child during this time. And sometimes if we overfunction for our kids, we interfere with the Lord's work in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Caroline, I know other people, they've got it much worse than I do. But is it okay for me to ask for help? Because I feel embarrassed about asking for help.
It is always, always, always a good idea to ask for help if you feel like you need it. I mentioned this earlier, but I think the idea of comparison, in the same way we fall into it in other situations, I think we can fall into it here. And that guilt, that of like, oh, if I'm not as bad off as so-and-so, then I don't need to be, asking for help. That is what the enemy wants you to do. Like, the enemy wants you to think you're not that bad or you're alone and you don't deserve to ask for help. And that's just not what is helpful. That's not what God would intend. So I would say there's never a situation in which it would be like teachers say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's no such thing as a bad time or a stupid time to ask for help. It's always appropriate. It's always okay, and we're all here for it. If you have a question about what it looks like to get help, or what it might look like in terms of specifically what you're experiencing, reach out to us. And reach out to other people in your life too. I think it's things like that comparison game can create division in relationships, and that's definitely not what we need right now. We need to be connected to each other. So, invest in and confide in the people close to you, and definitely reach out for help to counseling services or other similar resources to the extent that you can, or that you feel like would be helpful for you.
Good. Travis, we've kind of touched on this one, but how do I balance home life, work, schooling, now that I've got all these extra demands that are now placed on me?
Yeah, I think Dr. Thacker touched on this a little bit, but your area of tolerance of what you can handle has not changed. There's nothing that is going to improve in this situation, but your limits that you've had in the past are going to be put on trial right now. So you need to be able to ask for help, like Caroline said, when you need it. DTS is doing as best as they can to help students with their grades by giving them the pass-fail option, knowing what is okay to fail in. So if there is an assignment that you need an extension on, talk to your professors, talk to the people that can actually make those changes that you desperately need in this time. And like Dr. Thacker said earlier, you know, like you're not going to be the best at every task that is on your list to do, but you can do the best that you can with what you got, where you are right now. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing that, you know, be reasonable with yourself. Like, know that I'm not going to get an A+ on every assignment that's coming in. I got a lot of things to worry about. If I have kids in the home, I got kids to take care of. I have a family. You know, you can be productive daily as a choice and make sure that you're taking the time to rest. If we're working nonstop till 2 in the morning, it's probably a sign that we need to start scheduling better and add some breaks here and there. I think one of the best articles I was reading about working from home is that you need to have a set end time for work, you know, keeping the boundaries of, hey, I usually work 9 to 5, but now that I'm working at home, it doesn't mean I'm available past 5 p.m. Like, I need to set this hard boundary with the work environment that I'm in. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you just got to set your boundaries and try to maintain them the best that you can right now.
Okay. So, Dr. Cheatham, I have a bunch of counselors here, but maybe I don't, for whatever reason, I don't want to talk to a counselor, or maybe I don't feel like I need to talk to a counselor. Who else can I talk to?
Well, yeah, not everyone has to talk to a counselor. Counselors are just one of many resources available to people. So at DTS specifically, we have, depending on the needs of the student, you know, we have pastoral care people, we have, of course, advisors, and we have the other students. So it really depends on the need, but it doesn't mean you have to talk to a counselor. And as we've said several times today, looking for social support, people around you, and that doesn't mean necessarily face-to-face, but just taking the initiative, being active, reaching out, not waiting for people to reach out to you necessarily, but reach out for, as Caroline was saying, the help you need. It's okay to ask for help, but we understand how difficult that can be. But it doesn't have to be a counselor. Some people will have certain feelings about that. They're not ready to talk to a counselor, and that's okay. We get that. But don't, recognize that there are people. God has provided lots of different types of people around you. If you have to, you could you could talk to maybe Pastor Joe or someone like that, or even Dr. Hillman. If you don't know where to start, reach out to somebody in the student life department and say, "This is my need. I'm not sure where to go with this," and see what they can provide. But you are not alone with this. But it's by no means our counselors here to be the kind of end all and have all the answers. We're part of the overall support system that you have, but you really have a decision to make about who that is. But sometimes we just don't know where to start. So sometimes people come to counseling because as the first stop, they don't know where else to begin. They almost come to counseling to talk about if they should come to counseling, and that's okay. We get that. So just reach out to the student life department, I guess, is where I would say it would be the first place, and let them reach out to you or let them respond to you in a way that's customized for whatever your needs are.
Good. Dr. Thacker, I know the person who posted this one. It says, I have a family member who works at a hospital in one of these hot spots, and I'm worried and I can't focus on anything. How do I handle that?
Yeah. Well, and again, like I think all of us have said, that worry and that anxiety is real and it's valid and it's normal. Oftentimes with emotions, we try to diminish our emotions by ignoring them or stuffing them down or maybe invalidating them or saying, "Oh, that's not that big of a deal." But really the best way to work through emotions is to experience them and to feel them. And so I would encourage this person to allow themselves to feel that fear and that anxiety in a non-judgmental way. And oftentimes it's noticing it when you sense it in your body or it's in your awareness that, wow, today I'm having just a really tough time because I can't stop thinking about what could possibly be happening to my loved one. And then give yourself care. And a lot of times we're good at caring for others, but we're not so great at caring for ourselves in a gracious way. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage people to think about how would you comfort a child or an individual who comes to you with the same concerns and is fearful. And you might, I think about how I care for my little ones when they're upset about something and they're freaked out by this as well. I say, oh, sweet one, I know you're scared, but we're going to go through this together and we're going to get through it. And God is still in control, but I know you're scared, and I hold them close. And so I think even doing that for yourself of saying, I'm really scared right now and it's okay. Shh, it's okay. And it seems kind of silly, but in the moment, it's actually really beneficial. And one thing that can be really even just like a very simple technique, but some people find it really reassuring to place their hand over their heart and just apply a little bit of pressure and breathe deeply. And that can just help calm the brain's pathways. And breathing is always a good choice. So I think just acknowledging it and feeling it and speaking kindly to yourself in that moment of, okay, I'm scared and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we're going to get through this, and God's in control.
Yeah. So Dr. Woodson, I'm following the government mandates, yet I've got these rebellious people around me who aren't obeying the social distancing rules, and they're putting other people at risk. What do I say to that person?
Well, I think you can give them a word of encouragement and tell them what are the proper rules. But I think it's important to note that it's not your job to change them. It's not your job to fix them. It's not your job to make them do what's right. But the person is flagrant. They are doing what's wrong and they're hurting others. I think you have a responsibility to report them to authorities. If it's here on campus, to report them to the student life office. Maybe report them to the housing management office. But we have a need or a responsibility to report behavior that's inappropriate. But I think we've already mentioned this before, and it's worth mentioning again, that we need to take care of ourselves. And we need to not place ourselves in harm's way. We need to go the opposite way at times. You've told them that their behavior is wrong. You've reported them. They still continue to involve themselves in that wrong behavior. At the end of the day, you need to take care of yourself. You can't change them. You can't make them do what's right, but you can do what's right. And you need to place yourself in situations that are healthy. And sometimes you have to ignore people who are choosing to do what's wrong. So taking care of yourself is a big part of that formula. And coming to the conclusion that you can't change them. That's not your responsibility. Report their behavior, but take care of yourself.
So Caroline, I could have written this one. I'm an extrovert, and it's really difficult for me to focus on my studies or work when I can't interact with anyone. That's why I have the fake coffee shop behind me, because that's my natural habitat. How do I gain motivation if I get my motivation from being around other people?
I could have written it too. I'm an extrovert as well. I think some of the things I've already talked about would definitely fall into this category as well, in terms of being intentional and regular about social interaction virtually with the people in your life. And then also the creativity aspect, I think, is helpful with motivation and just focus in general. Is taking it when you take breaks from, or when you're not working on school or work, to be intentional about what you're doing, to keep yourself like energized and motivated. And I think the practicing creativity is a helpful thing for that. And also I just think of like workspace, like wherever you're working or doing your studies, to create a physical environment that's helpful for you. And if you're an extrovert, maybe you appreciate noise. So maybe there's music or a TV in the background or something that kind of creates this illusion of that you're not like isolated in a vacuum. So you can use like noise or music for that. Also, just you could even like plan breaks throughout your day to call people if that's helpful for you. I think just there's not a one size fits all, even for all extroverts, and being able to kind of just practice self-awareness through all of this and be able to admit to yourself what you need, what you want, and to seek it out and to ask the people in your life to connect with you if that connection is what helps. And I think also exercise and just getting outside is helpful for kind of the restlessness that some extroverts have when they don't get to be around people. So whether you're doing something outside with people or even alone, or if you can talk on the phone while you walk outside, just kind of mixing all these things that we do have available to us together to kind of try to kind of amplify or compensate for the lack of the things that we don't get to do right now.
Yeah. Travis, I've heard this one a lot, and unfortunately, I think I'm going to hear this even more in the coming days. I've lost my job, so now what?
Yeah, when I got the list of questions and I read this one, man, my heart just hurt knowing that there's people out there that are experiencing this, and in the future, more people might be experiencing this as well as things keep changing. I'm sorry that if you are put in this financial worry situation, that it is a shocking and jarring event. And so just like everything else, allowing yourself to have the space to process, okay, this isn't my fault. I'm not to blame for losing this job, that this is something that was totally out of my control, that there's something that I could not have done to keep this. And since we do rely heavily on income to provide for our needs, my encouragement is even income alone comes from God. It all comes from him. And so if he made the decision that you are not going to be working at that location right now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be working for the rest of your life. So when we talk about that downward spiral, it's okay to feel bad about what's happening in your life. But when you start the process to begin job searching, again, if you need to, you don't need to go Sonic mode and go all night searching through job boards nonstop till you find something. You still need to set boundaries on how much processing you can do in one day with it. So giving yourself time to find the job is okay. And, in this temporary season, that new job you take on might be temporary in nature. So don't be afraid to take a job that might not be to your status quo level or something that you thought you would never have to do. But if you have needs that you need to be providing for, take the job that you can. And, God has carried people throughout the entire narrative of the Bible to each location that they need to be in. And as believers, we are equally where we're supposed to be at any given moment. And so I feel like we can trust that the God of the Bible, who's good, is going to be good to us, even though we're experiencing a momentary challenge now. And then, keep leaning into your resources. There's a lot of places that are setting up funds. If people are worried about rent, I know today's April 1st, which is rent day for many people, and people are having to use different means to pay for it that they never thought they had to use before. So keep looking out for those resources. If you were a full-time worker, you may qualify for employment benefits or unemployment benefits. So keep looking into the resources as they become available. But I know there's a lot of resources out there that we can look into.
Good. Dr. Thacker, this one's a very raw question. It says, I've been having to constantly work through my own feelings of anger, feeling frustrated, impatient with my family. And then that swirls into me feeling guilty and angry towards myself for feeling that way to the people that I love the most. So how do I deal with that cycle?
Yeah. So I think sometimes we think of anger as an inappropriate emotion or even sinful. And one thing that's important to understand is that emotions are not sinful in and of themselves. They're not bad. They are kind of like the check engine light on our dashboard, that when they go off, they signal that something needs to be attended to. And in this season, I think that feeling of frustration or anger towards the people you're sharing space with is incredibly normative. Or at least I hope it is, because I really identify with it. But it's just hard to be in close quarters and not get to leave and to completely rearrange your schedule and your way of interfacing with the world. And so it's going to give us all pretty short fuses probably. But because it's a check engine light, we need to notice it, and we need to to respond to it appropriately. And so the appropriate response is to attend to the need that it signals. Usually when we're angry, it's signaling that there's something that we perceive as taken from us, or there's a need that's not met. And so we need to think about it in the moment. Is it kind of a global anger that I'm frustrated, that my world has been turned upside down? And probably beneath that is a feeling of grief over the loss that's being experienced. Of you can't go to graduation, or you can't be out of your house. And so responding to that in a gentle and kind way, and it's not going to work perfectly at all times, but if you can do it about half the time where you respond to yourself in that way and figure out what the need is, then you can meet that need in an appropriate way. And sometimes the people we share space with are annoying. They just are. We've had a lot of annoying things happen in my house recently.
Yeah.
It's like, so just, it's a normal thing right now.
Yeah. Thanks. So Caroline, kind of related a little bit to what Dr. Thacker was saying at the end. I know people have lost much more than I've lost. So is it appropriate for me to grieve the loss of maybe a planned vacation I had this summer, or the disruption of my routine?
Of course. I mean, grief sounds like a weighty word, but it really just, as Dr. Cheatham said, all it really is processing a loss. So whether that loss is someone passing away or a trip getting canceled, it's still a loss in some way. And we still go through that process of kind of finding meaning in what does this do to me? How do I feel about it? And that's a process that we're going to go through, and we deserve to go through, and is good to go through for any loss.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dr. Woodson, this semester hasn't turned out the way I had planned. And how do I cope with that?
Yes, it did not turn out the way you had planned. And sometimes we're not in control. And we have to accept the fact that we have plans, we have ideas, but we are not in control. We have to accept the fact that we're not in control. Again, we come back to that word grief. We have to grieve some of our plans and some of our losses, and to accept this new reality. This is a new reality. We've already said, but things are going to look differently from here on out. And we have to accept that and be willing to change and be flexible. And then plan for the future. Make a plan to see what the future is going to look like. It may not look like the past, but it's bright, it has hope, it has promise, and we need to lean into that. And then today, we need to move on. We need to make plans and take care of ourselves and do what's right for us. But you're right. It may not look like the past, but the future is bright, and the future has hope. And let's lean into that.
Good. Well, Dr. Cheatham, as we wrap up this time, this kind of last question is a good kind of overarching question of what can I do for self-care and my own emotional management during this season?
That's a great question. It probably is a good one to end on. And those things are connected, self-care and emotional management. So when we talk about self-care is really a multifaceted thing. So, or endeavor, actually. So we need to focus on kind of the big picture holistically, thinking about emotional, physical, relational, spiritual health. So we need to really kind of aim for all those things and taking care of ourselves, us taking the responsibility, caring for ourselves. And like Dr. Thacker said earlier, often we tend to, especially as parents maybe, we tend to take care of other people first. And we do need to exercise that for me to help others, I need to help myself first. I'm as healthy as I can be to help them be healthy too. So physical health, everything from eating right to getting enough sleep, relational health, not isolating, staying connected, sharing with others like we talked about, whether it's counseling, a pastor, a friend, family member, emotional health, again, doing that and expressing how we're feeling, being aware of our own feelings, owning those feelings, accepting the feelings like we talked about, recognizing the normalcy of those feelings. And then spiritual health, of course, taking this to the Lord and maybe having a prayer life that we've never had before. To really going, this is time for me really to get close to God. I mean, there is through all this, there's nothing more assuring than the love and consistent faithfulness of God. Amen. I mean, that's what we've got to count on, and we can. We have a God who is in control, and we have at my church, we all wear these bracelets. We've been wearing them for years. It says God is big enough, and I look at that bracelet often, especially right now. He is big enough, and this has not caught him by surprise, caught us by surprise, and we're having to struggle to adjust. But we can put our faith and trust in him, and there's never been an opportunity like there is now. So let's focus on what we can control, care, be aware of boundaries, not worrying about trying to do things we can't control, or either other people we can't control, or things we can't control. We have a lot we can control. So it's okay to say no to things, to accept that things aren't perfect right now. But yeah, self-care is huge. If you help with that, of course, we're standing by the counseling department. All the things we talked about today, counseling services, we're here to help. And we can, if nothing else, come to us and we can help you. Even if you don't want counseling, consistent counseling, we can help you find the resources you need.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to go through some of these questions. And for folks who are going to be watching this, I hope that it is benefit. And again, this is an amazing team. And if you do want to sit down and have a conversation with anyone that you've seen on the screen today, just students.dts.edu, look for counseling services, and you can schedule an appointment there. So again, thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Dr. Hillman.
Thank you.
Thanks.